Creatures of the night. It's your girl Tati. Let's talk about Dynamite 250. Before I do get into this review, I have to say congratulations to AEW for making it to 250 episodes of Dynamite. Now, I remember last year being at Dynamite 200 and feeling really great to be at the show and just thinking, like, they're going to end up being able to have hundreds of more episodes for sure. Sometimes I do get a little worried, but they've actually been doing a really great job. And here's to another 250. I'm happy for them. Now, with this episode, we actually started off with Will Ospreay versus MJF. Now, they did let us know that that was going to be the opening match. I think they told us this since last week, I want to say. So we knew that this is where things were going to go in terms of how we were starting off the show. For me, I was just thinking, okay, this is definitely a pay-per-view type of match when you think of Will Ospreay versus MJF. So I thought for a minute that what was going to end up happening was that we'll get a little something with the two of them, but then ultimately, because of, foolishness going on, the match is going to end up being called off or whatever situation it would be, where they would end up having to run it back at the All In pay-per-view, and you will get an actual real match that time. Now, can y'all believe it? This match went on for almost an hour. It went on for 59 minutes and 58 seconds to be exact. Some people were questioning if that was the case. It was like, oh no, it was already past an hour of the show being on, so how could it have actually been that time? For the people who are not realizing this, the wrestling matches don't start as soon as the show airs. They make their entrances to the show, so a few minutes do actually pass before the bell actually rings. So yes, it was past, an hour of the show being on, but the match was on for 59 minutes and 58 seconds by the time the match was over. Now we have Will Ospreay throughout this whole match holding onto his shoulder, holding onto the neck area. MJF was really pressing about messing up the knees so we don't see Will Ospreay typical, flipping around, jumping around all over the place. And this was actually a really fun match. It started off a little bit on the slow side. And let me just say this. It was so refreshing to get this from MJF because it really felt like you got the old MJF back. Everything that he does, that character that he plays, he is just so great at every little thing that he does. He tells a story every single time that he's in the ring. Like, there's like him or not, he's very entertaining. He is somebody who's literally probably sat there and watched countless hours of pro wrestling just to study, like, what can he do to set himself aside from any other pro wrestler that are active at this point. And he's absolutely achieved that. He's amazing in the ring. Will Ospreay is great as well, too. But, like, you're seeing here that Will Ospreay don't look his best in comparison to the other opponents that he's faced. And it's not necessarily to make MJF look strong. He's gone through a lot. He's gone through some of the very best in AEW, and it's like at this point I could see why he'd be beat up by the time he gets in a match like this with MJF. We did have a table spot. MJF did come down with a flying elbow onto Will Ospreay on the table. We had a little girl in the crowd who got a chance to punch MJF a few times in the stomach, and that was pretty interesting. I'm pretty sure she gonna go on and call her friends in the morning and say, guess what I did? I beat the shit out of MJF. It was a really great match from both of these guys. And, I didn't really think about the time limit. I didn't really remember hearing that the time limit was for 60 minutes. But once we got past like the 40-minute mark is when I was just like, all right, they are definitely either going for a draw or they're going to be like super, super close, like what they did with Juicy and Jay White versus FTR, which is basically what they ended up doing. And man, this was such an amazing match. However, we do have Will Ospreay, who is teasing giving this Tiger Driver 91, the move that he swore he was never going to do ever again. And because he's hesitating to do this, MJF takes the opportunity to shove our bruv, and then bruv gets shoved onto Bryce, and then Bryce is knocked out for a moment or two, and then here's MJF reaching over for the Dynamite ring and punching Will Ospreay upside the head with it, and then he ends up tossing it out the ring, and the referee, he gets back up, and 1, 2, 3, we have a new champion. And I was so happy to see it. Like, I was being so dramatic watching that match. Thank you to anybody who did watch the watch along. Things did get a little rough after that match. Now, what was interesting was immediately after this, we did have like every single doctor in Arkansas jump up in that ring to go check up on Will Ospreay. They also checked up on our scumbag as well. He had to have oxygen on after that match, which was very interesting. And I was just like, holy shit, these motherfuckers are tired. Like, they were in here for a whole hour doing their thing. And it was an amazing match. Definitely one of the best matches of Dynamite history for sure. And who better than these two to give you such a really great match here? Oh, I do want to say this too. It would be interesting if we get, okay, just hear me out, MJF versus Daniel Garcia. Throughout this whole match, MJF was taunting Daniel Garcia. He was even doing the dance several times throughout the match and talking to Danny, through the camera or whatnot. And I was just like, okay, maybe Ospreay's going to be out. And then maybe Daniel Garcia at all out, not all out, all in. That would be interesting. We'll see if that's the route that they're going to go. We got a new champion. I'm cool with it. My scumbag, I'm happy about it. I know some people aren't, but it is what it is. Will Ospreay has done an amazing job with this title. He's done an amazing job since he's been in AEW. I was getting a little tired of seeing him, but man, this guy is absolutely amazing. If he is not doing well, I hope he gets better soon. He's done really, really well. All right, y'all. So from there, the show went left, okay? And I'm just going to explain this. At first, I was okay with, Will and MJF opening the show. I thought it was going to be great. I did not expect to pretty much get an Iron Man match out of these two. But because that match was just absolutely phenomenal, everything after that didn't really live up or even match anywhere near what we got that first hour of the show. And it made me think, like, maybe that should have been the main event or something. Like, the energy just could not match what we got that first hour. So I don't know. That second hour definitely kind of felt boring. After our opening match, we did have backstage, we had Mark Briscoe and the Acclaimed, and the Acclaimed were asking Mark Briscoe, of all people, I have no clue why, if they can be part of the Blood and Guts match. And I was like, Mark Briscoe, you better say no. And he actually says yes. And then Swerve comes on and he's just like, oh, we had our problems before, but now I can't see who better to be on Team AEW. I'm just like, Swerve, are you kidding? Like, you should be the leader of this group, and you should also just be saying, no, bro, you guys can't be in the group. Look, I'm all for the young talent getting opportunities or whatever. However, I disagree with the Acclaim being in this match. We've hardly gotten anything from the Acclaim. The only thing that they got really is a title shot to go against the Young Bucks in the future. And it's just like, when I think Blood and Guts, I would not be thinking about Anthony Bones and Max Caster. So in my opinion, I feel like there would have been better options in terms of a Blood and Guts match. We've never even seen these two guys have a scratch or bleeding or anything. They just don't scream blood and guts to me. I just felt like this isn't what I would want in terms of a team, especially for the babyface team. We could have done better. We'll talk a little bit more about this team in a minute. After this, we do have the Learning Tree who's in the ring talking about, he's trying to teach people stuff. And those of y'all who don't want to learn, bad things happen to y'all. So he starts showing what happened to Samoa Joe, Hook, and Shibata. And then luckily, Minoru Suzuki comes out. And the Murder Grandpa has a contract. And basically it says that he's going to be going against Chris Jericho at Blood and Guts. And it's for the FTW title. I am okay with that. I remember a few weeks ago, it seemed like Suzuki wanted to go against MJF. Not MJF. Look at me think about MJF because I don't want to think about Chris Jericho. he came out and had like a video basically saying he wanted to go against Chris Jericho for the FTW title. That didn't end up happening, and now here we are, Blood and Guts. We're gonna get that next week, and hopefully takes the title off of Chris Jericho. That might not happen, but he'll definitely whoop his ass. After this, we had a TBS title on the line. We have Mercedes Moné versus Nyla Rose. Really, I'm sorry, just couldn't get into it. By then, it was pushing towards like 30 minutes left of the show. Didn't really feel like we had enough time. And then we know we had the main event. We also had Mariah May we had to hear from. And it felt like this was probably going to be rushed. I think we could have actually had a better match between the two of them if it felt like there was more time to give these girls. And unfortunately, I just couldn't get too much into it. You would think that Nyla would just dominate most of this match. And really, it was kind of like 50-50. And, I don't know. Like I said, after that first hour, everything else kind of just felt like we couldn't compare in terms of entertainment. Now, we do have Mercedes, who is earlier, she was talking to the Young Bucks, and they banned DMD from the building, apparently, so she couldn't be there and ruin her match. And while she's in the match with Nyla, she comes out with her own glove, a black glove. It says CEO on it, and it had like press-on nails on all the fingertips. And I'm just like, she better not put that in Nyla's mouth. Like, what the fuck? She ends up giving her, what does DMD calls it again? I don't remember, but it's basically a mandible claw. And I'm just like, okay, I would not want no press-on nails in my mouth. Now, Nyla does end up biting her hand, so she ends up like taking her hands out of her mouth, and then she starts smashing her face onto the mat several times, and then she goes for, I believe, a crossface, and ends up having Nyla tap, and she wins. She's celebrating outside the ring, and somebody is out there in the crowd with a mask on. Turns out to be DMD, and they getting into it. All the security guards in the building come and separate these two girls. And that's pretty much it. I don't know, bored. Up next, we do have them showing the whole recap of what happened with Mariah May and Toni Storm. And then after that, we had Jackson Perry, who was doing a promo. And he's like, Darby Allin, you think I give a fuck that you went up and beat on Brandon Cutler? And he goes, I don't give a fuck about him either. And he beats up Brandon Cutler back there. And I'm just like, look at Jack Perry doing the Lord's work. Brandon Cutler deserves to get his ass whooped. Now, how that's going to happen within the whole elite after they find out that Brandon got his ass whooped, they probably don't care either. So he cuts his promo, and I thought it was really interesting, and I was just like, okay, maybe they're foreshadowing that Darby will be in this Blood and Guts match, but we'll talk about that in a second. After this, Mariah May comes out. She comes out to Toni Storm's music, and she also comes out wearing Toni Storm's, like lingerie look that she's been doing. And at first, I was just like, I don't know how to feel about this. A lot of people in the chat did not like it because they were just like, this was an opportunity to literally break away from the whole Toni Storm thing and be yourself. Now, I feel the very same way. However, I feel like, all right, she did what she did. She came out as Toni Storm once again. Maybe we should wait and next week and see. Like, if next week she comes out as Toni Storm again, they ruined it. They absolutely ruined it if that's the case. I do feel like it is time for people to see, like, All In is 6 weeks away. And it's like not too much time to truly get to know who Mariah May is. Now, when Mariah May, before she even said anything, Tony Schiavone was been running his mouth all motherfucking night. He gonna go and say, speak, bitch. And I was just like, I know he did not call lady a bitch. It was wild, absolutely wild. Long story short, Mariah was just saying how, everybody saw it coming except for Tony, who was a dumbass. And she had what was coming to her. Ended up taking longer than she expected for it to happen. But here she is. And I'm going to be honest, it was lackluster to me. I just kind of felt like, damn, if you came out as yourself, I think it would have gone over more. Everybody was, calling out for Tony and cheering for her. Even Shivani, who all of a sudden talking about, well, Tony's has been a wonderful champion. Really? Up until now, y'all was literally saying all this shit about her because she was the heel in the situation. Now that she's a baby face, now she's had a wonderful reign, a wonderful champion. Oh, God, annoying. It just could have been so much better. I honestly am not sure what they're going to do with Mariah, but at this point, she needs to be herself to move forward. If she's going to be Toni Storm still in some type of way, I don't think this is going to turn out to be best case scenario for her. After this, they did show from Collision how when they stripped the Bang Bang Gang of the titles, they actually literally took them titles away from them motherfuckers and said, hey, it is what it is. We called it and we said that you guys are stripped from the title because Jay White can't be in action. So it is what it is. So they're going to end up going against the patriarchy on Saturday. I can't wait because I'm going to be at the show. And honestly, I see the patriarchy end up getting it. It is what it is. I don't know why they even bother to do this. Keep the titles on the Bang Bang Gang and then have these guys go against the Bang Bang Gang for the title, and then y'all gonna put them on them. Honestly, I don't know. It's weird. Main event time. Swerve Strickland versus Okada, champion versus champion. The titles are not on the line. Just two champions getting in the ring going at it. Finally get to see Okada in the ring. That $14.5 million. I don't know where it's going, but he's finally in the ring. And Okada does this thing where he just looked bored, where he looked like he's over it, where he got other things to do on a Wednesday night. And I just love his facial expressions throughout the match. Real talk, this is just another one of those situations where it was just like we already had our main event earlier in the show. And it kind of sucks because Okada and Swerve are fucking amazing. And the match, I think, probably would have felt better if it opened the show. And I know a lot of people would be like, well, Swerve is a champion. He should be main eventing the show. That part I do agree. But knowing what we know now about what we were getting from MJF and Will Ospreay, probably better for them to have opened the show. But then again, there's foolishness to be done in a situation like this. So match isn't as interesting as you would hope to see with Okada and Swerve, especially the first time that these guys lock up. This is something that could have been saved for a pay-per-view. However, with just a handful of minutes until the top of the hour for the show to be over, the Elite get involved. And since they get involved, ref rings the bell. And both of these teams start spewing out there and fighting. Now, we do have Heyman who comes out. The Elite seems to be happy about seeing Heyman. Heyman don't see no one in the building but Swerve, okay? It's like everybody is just like non-existent and only Swerve is there. He goes out to go to Swerve. They're staring at each other before he can even get through the ropes. Surprisingly and weirdly to me, Okada ends up dragging Swerve out the ring and they end up going through the crowd. And I'm just like, oh, okay, something about that felt a little bit weird. I'm not sure if that was supposed to happen, but or just they just didn't want these two guys to touch each other or whatever. But immediately Okada ends up taking Swerve out the whole equation and they end up leaving and the rest of these guys are there. However, it's still a little bit of an unfair advantage because two of those guys had already left and we already don't have a fifth member for Team AEW. And then exactly what we said weeks ago, here is Darby Allin music playing, and like a whole minute go by, and everybody's like, "Where's Darby? Where's Darby?" And Darby comes from the rafters, and he looks like he's like backwards or whatever. Like you couldn't really see him the way he came down. It's somewhat awkward, but whatever. He ends up coming down. Mark Briscoe ends up unhooking him, and then everybody start brawling, and that's how the show ends. And honestly, a lot of people are not feeling Team AEW. They think that it could be better. Darby Allin, when you think blood and guts, you do think Darby Allin. However, after everything that he's gone through, this guy is somehow still alive. Probably why people didn't want him to be in here, because they do feel concerned about Darby, well-being, and I could totally understand. The Acclaim do feel a little bit odd, and not even a little bit, they do feel odd in this group. However, we'll see what it is that they can be able to do next week during the Blood and Guts match. We already know that it's going to be a lot of shenanigans and crazy bumps and just the wildest things going on in that match. And, it'll probably turn out to be good. However, a lot of people are just not feeling Team AEW. At least Team Elite makes sense with everybody that's on there. The other team, I think we could have had better people. House of Black, we could have nominated those guys. Like, I feel like there are other people that could have definitely been in it, and it would have felt like, oh, okay, this does feel like a Team AEW team. This does feel like everybody in here is qualified to be in a blood and guts match. But we'll see what happens, guys. This show, I do feel like in terms of the opening, that first hour is absolutely phenomenal. They only posted 22 minutes of this whole thing on YouTube, and you're pretty much going to get half the match if you didn't get a chance to see the whole episode. But if you ever get a chance to watch this whole match, absolutely worth it. Definitely one of the best matches in Dynamite history. Congratulations to our scumbag for getting the title off of Will Ospreay. Can't wait to see them run it back sometime in the future. Guys, thanks so much for watching my review. I'll be back tomorrow with Ring of Honor. Bye.